All right, hey traders, TG Watkins here, and yeah, it's basically a bit of a chop day. Last couple days chop. Earlier in the week, 2 big days down. This is all coming after Jerome Powell had his speech at the Brookings Institute. So we have just been on a wild roller coaster basically here with the market. So it seems as though for now this move up from Jerome Powell's speech saying that they were going to reduce the speed at which they're going to be raising interest rates, that seems to have been a bit of a bull trap. And we were looking to short. We were short right in through here, and everything was kind of looking that way to come down a little bit. I was actually targeting. Funny enough, I was targeting the hourly 200 at the time, and then his comment at the speech just jacked it the other direction. And it was basically kind of the last breath of the move to the upside. Like everything was kind of wearing out anyway and getting up there and whatever. And then they just tried to like goose it one more time, and then they kind of imploded it after that. So that's kind of what we're dealing with. And so it sold off Monday and Tuesday right in through here. But then again, we got pretty oversold because hourly chart, third ATR, and also hourly chart, the 200 SMA. So I figured that price was going to bounce a little bit, which it did today, Thursday. And then I'm figuring I want to see if there's just one more little move to the upside. So let's see if price holds the 15-minute 50, and let's see if it takes it up there a little bit. We've been seeing something like that with the SOXX. And so yeah, I think it's possible that we can get a little bit more move up like that. But after that, I'm still leaning back now towards price coming to the daily 50 SMA. So we'll have to see if that actually pans out like that. I've been watching the VIX and the UVXY, trying to find those little details, and it's just been tough. I mean, we also have a few news items coming up. We have the PPI tomorrow. We have CPI, I think it's Tuesday, and then we have the FOMC on Wednesday. So welcome to the big show. This is going to be a little bit crazy in through here. Now, I know it seems also kind of crazy to be talking any kind of bullishness, especially after all this. Like, people are probably like, well, duh, we're in a bear market. Yeah, but let me show you this kind of situation, because we could be in for an uncomfortable thing. So what I was thinking is here's a screenshot from 2002. And we could be in something like this. We could be in something like this. So, here we are at the 200, and I'm now targeting the daily 50. But then what happens if the daily 50 actually holds and we get a move up like that, only to then again get rejected at the 200 and then come down further? But this time, we don't puke. We don't act, that's not the move. There's yet again one more move up like that before it then finally rolls over. This is something I've been going back, looking at all the different bear markets that we've been through, trying to figure out, well, how do we know which path to go? Like, how do we know which one we're at? And I mean, to be perfectly honest, it is going to be really hard figuring out exactly which way this thing's going to go. Because you know what? I am seeing some signs and some indications that we could actually be a little bit bullish after this pullback down to the daily 50. And you know what? There you go. That's what happened back in 2002. And, we got a few days of the move up, and then it pulled back again. So, this market's basically just a mess. We know that. It's already a kind of a crazy bear market. But then the other crazy thing is like, okay, so if we figure out the next time to short it and we short it in through here, how do we know if this is the time to actually that it's going to really roll over, like this situation? Or how do we make sure we don't get faked out by something like this? Now, in here, we can see that it was a double bottom and then it reversed. But as we are going through this and experiencing this, that's probably going to be pretty tough to really determine unless we just have to take our shots and then get stopped out if it doesn't work. So then we shoot up and look, the big move to the upside, only to have that generally fade again, and then we get the big dump. So, yeah, we could just be into some gnarly stuff in through there. Heck, what if we're into something like this? So again, what if we come back down to the daily 50? We actually pass the daily 50, then we bounce, and then we come down again. And again, we don't necessarily puke or make new lows, but then that actually starts the new bull market. So, yeah, just welcome to the Thunderdome, basically. This is going to be a very challenging thing to keep figuring out. So that's why I'm saying that my next path is that I figure we're going to get SPY to basically the daily 50, probably below the daily 50 some, But then after that, we need to take that trade, let it go once we get there, because we don't know what's going to happen next. We could actually bounce a little bit. We could go further. Maybe after the bounce, it actually rolls over, even goes further down. But so we kind of need to take this like one move at a time. And what I'm looking for is a move down to the daily 50. Then we'll just have to reassess and see where things go. And I'm looking for when that opportunity is. Now, the other difficult thing that this might actually do is to set this up. Like we have PPI, CPI, and then we have FOMC coming up. So what's the likelihood that the moves are going to happen based on these news events, these data points that we have coming out? And so you don't necessarily want to take a trade before that news event comes out because, well, we don't know what the news is going to be. Like how many times has price just gone crazy up or crazy down based on CPI? And then we saw what Jerome Powell did at the Brookings Institute with, this big move. So any kind of comment and the market can just go crazy. So it might be difficult to be loaded up on something before the move. But then if we're going to try and catch something, it's like you kind of have to jump on it immediately for what that thing is doing. Now, balance that with, so this was Jerome Powell, but then if you remember this, there was a 45-minute jack up before it rolled over the other direction, and that was the last FOMC. So it's going to be really hard to kind of just predict what the market's going to do based on this news that's coming out. And so I think we just need to recognize that and kind of generally be okay with it. So there's the SPY, what I'm thinking. If we look at the VIX, oops, that's right. I need $VIX. And so if we look at the VIX, the other thing that I'm kind of looking at, if we go through this thing, is we do finally have the Moxie indicator firing. So we've been seeing this, price been coming down, Moxie indicator's been coming up, and I was looking for it to move up. Like I was looking for the VIX to do this. Then Jerome Powell had his speech, and it went the other way. So now we have it. Like that's the move I was looking for. You see how price is going through the hourly 50? Yeah, I was expecting it back here. So now we here are the daily 21, and now here we are at the hourly 200. We should be seeing a pullback from here. Just if my patterns hold up, leg, heel, arch of the foot, pull back, ball of the foot, and then we get a move up like that. So I want to see if we actually get the VIX to pull back to the hourly 50. If it does, that'll mean the SPY moves up, and that'll actually work for what I was thinking about the SPY bouncing. So then we can look at the UVXY, and the UVXY is not super clear right now. Again, I had some situations where I was expecting price down, Moxie indicator up. I was expecting it to move right there. It didn't because of Jerome Powell came down a little bit further like that. But now here we are again. Here is price holding the 15-minute 50. The Moxie indicator's up, and it was the same situation there. There's where price bounced off the 15-minute 50. The Moxie indicator was up. And, so now it's making a little bit more progress, but not quite yet. So you can see here that price started to roll over and pull back a little bit. So now we got to see in the next, day or two, we have Friday, and then we have Tuesday, Wednesday with Jerome Powell and the FOMC and CPI. We have to see if this thing is going to get into a position where it's going to kind of hammer out a bottom, then actually want to move up. So, if the UVXY moves up, the SPY moves down, I'm expecting the SPY to go to the daily 50, and then we'll have to see from there. So that's going to be challenging. And if we look at the NASDAQ, let me come over here. We can look at a more spread out time frame. Now, not too much to say. It's really just chopping around. What else can we really do in through here? It's chopping around. The Moxie indicator on the hourly chart is losing some energy. And of course, all these indices are going to move proportionately. So, the Dow is really high. So if the Dow goes below its daily 21, that would mean the NASDAQ probably goes below its daily 50, that kind of stuff. So really just not too much to say in through here. And that's the NASDAQ. The IWM, we are basically, if you guys remember my last video, I said I was looking for the IWM as it was getting rejected here by the daily 200. I was expecting to come down to the hourly 50. Well, daily 50. Well, instead, we had the Brookings Institute Jerome Powell speech, and so that gave one more pop-up, and then, you know what? Now here we are. Now here we are at the daily 50. I think there's still more room to go to the downside. I could easily see price coming down to the third ATR, but we got to get the timing right. So I think that there might be just one little more bounce like that, and then we head back down to that extent. Now, if we look at these on the higher time frame charts, The weekly is positioned to go higher if it wanted to, but it's also positioned to go lower. So what's the deal? We have an undercut and rally like that, and then we do have the 8 over the 21. However, we do have price running into the weekly 50. So which one's it going to do? Which one is this going to pan out and work? We don't know yet. We're going to have to wait and see. If the daily 50 for the SPY holds, then we could see price actually get up and over and go over the weekly 50. I mean, look, the Dow did that, so just look at the Dow for an example. The IWM is kind of looking the same thing. You know, for it, it's actually done a pretty good job doing a double bottom in through here. So, I mean, does that mean much? Can price get past the weekly 21? I mean, this is actually holding for a fair amount of time. And if you notice, the 8 is over the 21, and we do have price trying to get past the monthly 10 SMA. So if this thing does want to go bullish for some time, it is in the position to do so. If it doesn't go bullish, well, then we're probably going to say, hey, it got rejected by the underside of the weekly 50 and we go lower. So yeah, anything can kind of happen, and it can prolong for a long time. This is why I showed you from 2002, some of the situations that we might be in. And the Dow, you know, if this thing were to go bullish, which obviously it is bullish right now, but it's overbought. You know, we can see that there's a giant gap here between price and the weekly 8. You know, if this were to stay bullish, I would imagine we should see a pullback, and then it continues to find support, you know, something to that extent. One thing I wanted to show you was ASO as an example of what to look for on these higher time frame charts if, say, the Dow or even the SPY were going to go bullish. I mean, look at ASO. What is it doing? It got over the monthly 10, flagged sideways, and then bounced off the monthly 10, and now it's making new highs. What did that look like on the weekly chart? Well, you know, it got up here, probably got it a little overbought. And what did it do? It basically came down to the weekly 21 with a little dip down here to, you could probably call it the weekly 50. So yeah, it went up and then flagged for a while and then started to move up even further. So what does ASO look like on the daily and hourly chart? So in through here, we could see that initially, you know, kind of did this back and forth in through here, and it was able to get over the 50 and over the 200 on the daily chart. There was a little bit of a fake out here. It did pull back to the daily 50, but bounced a little bit, faded a little bit. And then what if we kind of get into this situation where you just fade for a while? Just, you know, not too bad, kind of fade a little bit. And then again, maybe it's earnings, but you got a big move up like that, and then you got a continuation right here. So you can see the hourly 200 is up, and the pullback was right into it, and then it shot up again. Again, I think that was earnings, so this thing was moving on that. Now, the market doesn't have earnings, but it could have Jerome Powell talking about some interest rates, and that could be enough to really get the market moving. So I just want to show you guys how some of these other things kind of work in this case, to be watching that even little pullbacks like this could end up being into support, and then they move up like that. All right, so that's the Dow. And then another thing to be watching for is we look at the dollar and we look at the TNX, so the interest rates and then bonds. Now, the dollar has been pulling back. This is probably partly why the market has been moving up like this. So, you know, dollar down, market up. But it is coming into an area right here of the daily 200. And that seems like an area where it could bounce at some point. So if the market wants to move down and the dollar is going to move up, then this seems like it would be a fairly good reason or location for that to happen. And we can see here price down, Moxie indicator up, and we're basically firing over here. And I'm wondering if it's going to find some support and pop up a little bit. A little bit of a pop up would help kind of fix this oversold situation. That would move the SPY down. The SPY could find support at the daily 50. And what if the dollar on this move up actually runs into resistance and then continues back down? That would be bullish for the market. So we do have to kind of look at these things and weigh them against each other and say, some of these macro situations could actually help fuel the market to the upside. Now, the other thing I want to show you this is let's do, and if we look at here on the monthly and weekly time frame for the TNX, if you look here, you had price get way outside of the 30 ATR on both the monthly and the weekly. And they sold off. They got too high. They came back. Now, I know these are interest rates and bonds and all that kind of stuff. And so, of course, There are big macro things going on here. We can't always say that this works as far as charts go, but I'm trying to wrap the Moxie stuff around it, and for the most part, it works out pretty well. We could also see that there's big gaps here between price and the monthly 10. And what it do? Pulled back to the monthly 10, pulled back to the monthly 10. On the weekly chart, here you go, pulled back to the weekly 21, and here again, pulled back to the weekly 21. So it seems to me that the TNX is at an area where it would be likely to bounce. If it bounces, that's going to be bearish for the market. The market's going to move down. If the TNX bounces off of here, like the weekly 21 area, then I would see the SPY head back down to its daily 50 area. That would seem to make sense. The question is what happens after this bounce. That's really what I'm trying to figure out. Because if it comes down here, holds, and then makes new highs, then yeah, the market's really going to roll over and the market's going to go down and we're going to get that big move sideways or big move down. But what if it comes down and then up and does a double top essentially and then starts to roll over? That would be bullish for the market, and that would actually cause the market to then say bounce off of its daily 50 and go higher. And so these are the things that I'm looking at and trying to balance between with all of them, because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to be happening with this situation. I mean, clearly you can see that these things are coming down. Moxie indicator called that pretty nicely. It even called it here with an inverse trampoline move on the hourly chart. Price should not be over the 50 with the Moxie indicator below 0. Now I am seeing, again, on the monthly and weekly time frame that this thing looks like it should be coming into support and should probably bounce. On the daily chart, we're coming into third ATR just like it was coming in at third ATR before. And on the hourly chart, I'm seeing some divergence. Price down, Moxie indicator up. Now, it's nothing to really work with as far as being bullish. Like, I don't see a setup here that I want to go buy and say, yes, I'm bullish on TNX. But it does look like it's maybe setting up for a bounce of some sort. So we'll have to kind of take us, as I said, in phases. So if we get a bounce, then after that, we'll probably get a pullback. Now that's the question. After the pullback, does it keep going lower? Or does it actually find some support and go higher, So here was a bounce, but it found some support and kept going. That's kind of what we're trying to look at. Or, heck, maybe we're even back here. Here's a bounce, but it went lower for a little bit. So this is where we're at, having to follow all these things and figure out what's going on. So kind of look through that. Of course, there are some names that have been doing well, and it might be due to interest rates. I've been noticing that some retail names are actually doing pretty well. DKS, Etsy, ASO, as I pointed out, even HIMS, HIMS. We've got a fair number of these names doing well. And you can see here with Etsy, this ended up being a trampoline move. Price below the 50, but the Moxie indicator above 0. Now, that is a really hard place to exactly find out where to get in that it's going to actually work. But when it does work, it is easy to point out. So you can see here, the price, we did a 50, 200, 50 maneuver, and price pulled back into an uptrending hourly 50 with the Moxie indicator above 0, and that worked. Now, of course, it would be difficult to exactly figure that out on any of these other moves, but when it works, it's easy to point out. And you can see that even the dips were viable because the Moxie indicator was above 0, and up it went. Now, maybe this thing's getting a little bit stretched. I wouldn't necessarily consider this long at this point, but there have been things that have been moving. So Etsy was one of them. I can even show you, HIMS is doing pretty well. We took a quick little trade off of this one, and it had earnings, flagged sideways, and then continued to move on up. So that was that one. And then we were talking last week about the cannabis names. GRWG was one of them. I shorted it for a moment into basically the daily 21, made a few bucks off of that, and then the whole market rallied and turned around. And yeah, GRWG went up big, but then it gave it all back. And that's kind of the crazy thing looking at this, especially with cannabis. It looked like risk was on. It looked like this market was going to go up and be okay with all that kind of stuff. But man, a lot of these just came back down from whence they came. And so that definitely put a lot of cold water on the situation and made it basically turn into a, 2 or 3 day wonder. So at this point now we just need to table these things. I'm not sure if they are safe to short, but we should wait and watch and see if this thing actually shapes up to do something later. Maybe the cat is out of the bag as far as interest rates. If these sorts of names, like cannabis names or whatever, responded to the notion that interest rates are going to slow and then pause and then maybe reverse, maybe these things are seeing ahead of what the of what the economy is going to do, or what Jerome Powell or the Fed is going to do. And so maybe yes, we got a big jack on the news when he mentioned it, but maybe what if these things settle in, and just the knowledge that the interest rates are going to slow down could help propel these things forward. Maybe that's part of the bullish case, but it's not now, it's a little bit later. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. Let me show you MJ. This is another one, just the ETF of the cannabis stocks. And you can see just huge move, and then gave it all right back. All right back. Now maybe they are, as I said, maybe these things are actually working themselves into a bullish situation. Part of what I see is a 50, 200, 50 maneuver. So we got to keep an eye on this and see if this pullback into the 50 actually ends up being support at some point, and then maybe they go up again. And so I look at this and say, hey, this is just a pullback into an uptrending daily 50, where this was just a move up across a downtrending 50. So yeah, we can't necessarily say these things are dead and gone yet. I do want to keep an eye on them because, yes, there's some activity, and we'll have to see if that activity really kind of comes in a little bit later. I'm seeing things like XLF. Let me show you this on the higher time frames. So XLF over the monthly 10, that was kind of a line in the sand for me. And the other thing that I'm seeing is that back here, now granted, I know it was 2020, there was a lot of money that the Fed was printing, all that kind of stuff, and we have different reasons now, but maybe the market's trying to go bullish. If it is, notice that back here, the 8 got over the 21, and then price was able to get past the 50. Well, what do we have now? We basically have a double bottom. We have the 8 over the 21, and we have what looks to be price trying to get past the the weekly 50. And so what if this pullback actually ends up being some strength or into strength, and it goes higher? And so if we look at this on the daily and hourly, that possibility is there too. Double bottom, positive divergence. Here's your first move over the 50. And then you run into, and you have a pullback into the 50. So if we close this gap and it finds support and goes higher, well, we got to go with it. So we don't know yet if this is going to be bullish or bearish, because right now we are dealing with a pullback, and now we need to figure out if that pullback is into support or not, and we have to wait until we get there. It's the same thing with the SPY. We have to wait until the SPY gets down to its daily 50, and then we can figure out if it's support or not. So I'm just making sure we kind of keep our eyes and brains open in case the market does actually find some support and we didn't even see it. Another thing that I'm kind of looking at, Amazon and Tesla. Now, maybe Tesla's having its own issues. They've gotten some weak reports and all that kind of stuff. And maybe Amazon's kind of in the same boat. But I'm starting to see that both those names are getting pretty oversold on the weekly chart. Now, yes, of course, if this market is really going to go down, yes, it could definitely keep going lower. We know that. However, if these names are maybe canaries in the coal mine and they are demonstrating that they're oversold and we could actually start seeing a move up, then what I'm seeing here is that there is a big gap between price and the weekly 10 SMA, which means that at some point price will want to come up there and fix that. You can see here there was a big gap and price came back up to the monthly 10. So what if we're in that same situation now? We're just kind of waiting for a trigger. We could see on the weekly chart essentially the same situation. You can see back here price got oversold, third ATR. We're kind of doing the same thing here. And you can also see that it's starting to really kind of pull away from the weekly 8 EMA. And so what if at some point this thing wants to snap back to the weekly 21? And that might be bullish for the market. And if we look here on the daily and hourly, now I know this kind of looks bad. It looks like it wants to just keep dribbling lower. But what if it doesn't? So if at some point, if the market says, yeah, okay, we actually want to move up after this pullback, what if this ends up being a double bottom? We can see here, price down, Moxie indicator up. And remember, Tesla's kind of looking the same way. And notice here, I was thinking this was going to be the bullish area because of what the market was doing. I thought that trampoline move was going to work. But this is still a potential trampoline move. And that might actually work. We don't know yet, but it might work. So we'll have to see if this happens. I need to wait again until we see another fresh setup, whether it's bullish or if this thing just keeps going down, if it's bearish. But I'm seeing things and clues and indicators that might lend itself to some bullishness that might be a bit of a surprise. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. UNG wanted to show you guys this. We did have a pretty quick trade to the upside. We traded Boyle. We had a nice move right in through here. And then I was looking for a pullback. Obviously, we're getting that pullback, but then I never found a buy opportunity because this thing just kept moving down like hard. I was looking for maybe a buy area right in through here. It didn't fire yet, so I didn't do anything about it. But then it definitely gapped down like this. So that was a big deal and big news. And I've just been stepping aside. Haven't found an opportunity for anything to do on this. If I had known it was going to go that far down, would have shorted it. Yeah, it would have been great. But you can see that there is a big gap here. Price was too oversold, and there was likely to be at least a snapback in the other way. Now, this is a counter trend trade for now. This up move, it's basically a bounce in a downtrend. This could be the beginning of an up move, but I'm going to have to wait until I see better signals. I can't go long when price is moving up into the underside of a downtrending hourly 50 with the Moxie indicator below zero. I mean, you could do this on a day trade or a very short-term basis, of course. I mean, look, there was a move to the upside. But as far as a trend or a swing trade to the upside, I don't see anything yet. So, all right, guys. Well, I'm going to be wrapping it up there. We got a lot of more news coming up, and it's difficult out there. So, hunker down a little bit. Be safe out there. We got the holiday season coming up, and maybe just take some time off until you can or day trade, something like that. So, anyway, hope you guys are doing well. Thanks again. Catch you at the next one.
Hey guys, Dave Keller here with StockCharts.com. Thanks so much for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, and we hope you did, hit the like button right below. Also, we have so much new content every day. Consider subscribing to the channel. Just hit the subscribe button in the video or right below. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Have a fantastic day.